Baggi wiped the sweat from his brow, his heavy axe resting against the thick stump of a recently felled oak. The autumn air was brisk, carrying the scent of pine and earth, but he knew the temperature would plummet once night fell. His small cabin, nestled deep in the woods, was stocked with firewood, but Baggi liked to keep busy. It helped him forget how quiet his life had become. Standing at 2 meters tall, his broad shoulders and muscular frame made most creatures in the forest think twice before approaching. His thick beard, a dark shade of greenish-black, added a rugged warmth to his otherwise stoic demeanor. Yet, despite his intimidating appearance, Baggi was a gentle soul who preferred the company of nature over the chaos of villages and towns. As he lifted another log to split, he froze. A faint sound reached his ears, carried by the wind. It was weak, almost lost beneath the rustling of leaves. "Help!" Baggi's brown eyes scanned the forest. He set down the axe and grabbed a lantern hanging from a hook near his cabin door. The whisper had been soft, but unmistakable. He followed the sound, his boots crunching on the frosty ground, his heart pounding harder with every step. Near an ancient oak, he found him, a man slumped against the trunk, his breathing shallow. He was pale, with short-cropped black hair and a lean frame wrapped in a tattered cloak. Blood stained the side of his shirt, and his eyes fluttered open as Baggi approached. "Hey," Baggi said, kneeling beside him. His deep voice was surprisingly gentle. "You're hurt." The man winced, his voice hoarse. "Bandits. I managed to escape." Baggi frowned. Bandits had no business in these woods. His territory was far from any roads or settlements. He reached out, his large hand brushing the man's forehead. He was cold, far too cold. "Can you stand?" Baggi asked. The man tried, but his legs gave out beneath him. Without hesitation, Baggi scooped him up, cradling him effortlessly in his strong arms. "Don't worry," Baggi murmured. "You'll be safe with me." The fire roared in Baggi's cabin, its golden light dancing across the wooden walls. The man lay on a cot near the hearth, his wounds cleaned and bandaged with care. Baggi worked silently, boiling a pot of herbal tea and glancing at his guest every so often. After a while, the man stirred, his eyes flickering open. He blinked, taking in the cabin's rustic interior, the rows of books, the sturdy furniture Baggi had crafted himself, and the towering figure of the orc seated nearby. "You're awake," Baggi said, setting the cup of tea on a small table. The man sat up slowly, wincing. I don't know how to thank you." Baggi shrugged. "It's nothing. You were hurt. Anyone would have done the same." The man chuckled weakly. "Not anyone. I've been left for dead before." Baggi frowned, his brow furrowing. "Not here. Not in my woods." The man studied him for a moment, his gaze lingering on the orc's broad chest and the way his green skin glowed in the firelight. There was something calming about Baggi, his quiet strength, his kindness. "I'm Tarian," the man finally said. "Baggi," the orc replied, offering a rare smile. Tarian hesitated before speaking again. "You live here alone?" Baggi nodded. "The forest is quieter than any village. People, they don't understand orcs. They see us as brutes." Tarian's expression softened. "Not all of us see that." Baggi's brown eyes met Tarian's, and for a moment, the room felt warmer than the crackling fire could ever make it. As days turned into weeks, Tarian recovered under Baggi's care. He learned that the orc's rough hands weren't just good for chopping wood, they were skilled at cooking, crafting, and even mending clothes. Baggi, in turn, found himself opening up in ways he hadn't in years. One chilly evening, as snow began to fall outside, they sat by the fire, sharing stories. Tarian leaned closer, his shoulder brushing against Baggi's. "I owe you everything," Tarian said softly. "I don't think I've ever met anyone like you." Baggi's gaze flickered to Tarian, his heart pounding in a way that had nothing to do with fear. "You don't owe me anything. I'm just glad I found you." Tarian's lips curled into a small smile. "Still, I don't want to leave. Not yet." Baggi swallowed hard. "Then don't." Their eyes met, and the quiet between them spoke volumes. Slowly, tentatively, Tarian leaned in, his hand resting against Baggi's broad chest. The orc hesitated, his breath hitching, before closing the distance. Their lips met, a kiss that was soft, yet charged with emotion. For the first time in years, Baggi felt truly seen, not as an orc, not as a recluse, but as a man. When they finally pulled apart, Tarian rested his forehead against Baggi's. "I think I've found my place," Tarian whispered. Baggi smiled, his arms wrapping around Tarian's smaller frame. "You're welcome to stay as long as you want." The kiss lingered in his thoughts, igniting something deep inside him that had long been dormant. Tarian's hand rested lightly on Baggi's arm, his touch tentative but filled with trust. He looked up at the orc, his brown eyes shimmering in the firelight. "You've been so kind to me," Tarian whispered, his voice barely audible over the crackling wood. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you." Baggi's deep voice rumbled as he spoke, his words soft yet resolute. "You don't need to repay me, Tarian. Just stay here. That's enough for me." Tarian smiled, leaning into the orc's solid frame. The warmth between them was palpable, the air charged with unspoken feelings. Baggi hesitated for a moment before speaking again, his voice tinged with nervousness. "It's getting late," he said, his brown eyes meeting Tarian's. "And the cot might not be the most comfortable place to rest." Tarian tilted his head, a playful glint in his eyes. "Are you suggesting something, Baggi?" The orc scratched the back of his neck, his cheeks darkening slightly, a blush that was barely visible against his green skin. "I was just thinking, my bed is big enough for the both of us. If you want." The corners of Tarian's lips twitched into a teasing smile. "Your bed, huh? Are you always this hospitable to strangers? Or am I special?" Baggi chuckled, his deep laugh reverberating through the room. "You're special," he admitted, his voice low but earnest. Tarian stood, wincing slightly as he adjusted to his still healing injuries. "Then I suppose I can't say no, can I?" Baggi rose to his full height, towering over Tarian but looking at him with a softness that belied his massive frame. He placed a gentle hand on Tarian's back, guiding him toward the door that led to his bedroom. The bedroom was simple but cozy, much like the rest of the cabin. A large bed made of sturdy oak dominated the space, layered with thick fur blankets to keep out the winter chill. The room smelled faintly of pine and the faint, earthy scent that always seemed to cling to Baggi. Tarian hesitated at the edge of the bed, running his hand over the soft furs. "This is nicer than I expected," he said with a smile. Baggi chuckled, stepping closer. "I may live in the woods, but I like to be comfortable." Tarian turned to face him, his expression softening. "Thank you, Baggi, for everything. You've done more for me than anyone has in a long time." Baggi shook his head. "You don't need to thank me. I'm just glad you're safe." There was a pause, the silence between them heavy, but not uncomfortable. Slowly, Tarian reached out, his hand brushing against Baggi's chest. The orc's heart thundered beneath his ribs, but he didn't pull away. Instead, he leaned down, his massive hands resting gently on Tarian's hips. "Are you sure about this?" Baggi asked, his voice low and full of concern. Tarian smiled, his fingers trailing up to Baggi's beard. "I've never been more sure of anything." Baggi's lips met Tarian's again, this time slower, deeper. The warmth of the room seemed to grow as they stood together, their bodies pressed close. As the night deepened, they lay side by side in Baggi's bed, wrapped in each other's arms. The firelight from the main room flickered through the doorway, casting a soft glow over them. For the first time in years, Baggi felt a sense of peace he hadn't thought possible, a warmth that didn't come from the fire or the furs, but from the man beside him. Tarian rested his head against Baggi's chest, listening to the steady rhythm of the orc's heartbeat. "I think I was meant to find you," he murmured. Baggi pressed a kiss to the top of Tarian's head. "And I think I was meant to protect you." The snow fell softly outside, blanketing the forest in white, but inside the cabin, two hearts beat as one, finding comfort in each other's embrace.